Hi, I'm Dave Shen, and this is the webinar on sugar and how it can affect your health and what you might do about it. And I'm going to start the presentation because I'm not sure how many people will come in, but the recording will capture all this, and hopefully those who come in late can join us in progress. So let me share the screen and begin. Okay, why am I starting way over here? Let's see, how can I get back to the front? Oops. Okay, can I do this? I do this. Okay, one more time. Let's see if I can get this thing going. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, that looks a little better. All right, thanks for coming to this webinar. How does sugar affect our health? Thought we'd spend a little time today and talk about this. And let's get going with this. All right, a little bit about me. My name is, again, Coach Dave Shen. I am a certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. I do a lot of life, health, and nutrition coaching based on both evidence-based and esoteric methods. I'm also a ADAPT certified functional health coach. I've gone through precision nutrition level 2. And also I dabble in swim coaching with total immersion. I've been doing that for a while. And I love coaching kettlebells, calisthenics, and a number of other disciplines as well. And was a triathlete for many, many years, raced 6 Ironmans among all the other fun things that I've gotten into over the years. Okay, so today's talk is, I'm going to talk a little about a little bit of the history and how sugar was used and how we got to this point. Where is the sugar in the food that we eat? How much do we consume? What happens in the body when that sugar gets in us? How it affects our health, and some of the things that we might be able to do about that. All right, so why are we focusing on sugar? Well, research has shown many links to a variety of diseases. But I do want to say that humans are complex, and sugar is just one of those possible things that lead to disease. It's probably one of the easiest ones to focus on, though. And processed foods seem to be the main culprit of many of these diseases, of which sugar is a main ingredient. So first, some history. So this graph shows how we've started eating a lot of fat, and then that's declined quite a bit. So around the 1970s, the USDA made some recommendations to stop eating so much fat because it was thought that eating fat would lead to cardiovascular diseases and obesity. So we started not eating fat. Food manufacturers, once they took out the fat, realized that food did not taste as good as it used to. So what do? They found that sugar actually made foods taste better, and also it's a fantastic preservative. So stuff will sit on the shelf much fresher for a longer period of time. Plus, sugar is cheap, and as a result, profits increase for these food manufacturers. So they started adding sugar and kept doing it. So what is processed food? Well, anything on this shelf, in this picture, on these shelves, are in boxes, bags, jars, cans, boxes, or wrapped around. It also includes fast food and junk food, but anything that looks like this is generally called processed. And they either make it, it doesn't look like anything that came out of the ground or anything that you might have found on a farm, but they will add ingredients and remove ingredients to make it whatever they want it to be. So where's the sugar in the food we eat? Well, we can divide the sources into 3 categories. So the first one is just simply the sugar that you find in whole natural foods. These are things that are in fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, dairy, anything like that. And the key thing to note is that when you find the sugar in this kind of food, in the natural food, the fiber in the plants limits the absorption of these sugars during digestion. So they don't enter into your system as much and as fast. Then come other natural sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, cane sugar. We consider those free sugars because they come in a form that don't contain fiber. Even though they are produced naturally, the fiber will limit their intake into the body and absorption into the body. And then comes the added sugar. Processed foods contain this sugar that they just put in there. It's added to improve flavor and shelf life, as talked about before. Fruit juices, on the other hand, sometimes don't have added sugar, although a lot of times they do. But if we take an apple, which had fiber in it, squeeze the juice out of it, their sugars then become free sugars, whereas before that they were whole natural, part of whole natural foods before. So how much sugar is in there? Oops, let's see here. Okay, how much sugar is added? So generally, if the sugar's sitting there in the real food, it's probably not that concerning to us because fiber will limit the absorption of these sugars during digestion. However, there's a lot of sugar elsewhere. So in plain sight would be stuff like in beverages, soda, sports drinks, etc. Desserts, ice cream, cake, pastries, cookies, popsicles, Jell-O, and things disguised as healthy foods such as smoothies, flavored yogurt, preserves. Then comes the sugar that's sitting in, that's kind of hiding. Okay, so a little bit lower content, less than 10%, but things like canned foods, soups, beans, salad dressing, pasta sauces, ketchup, cereals, pizza, you name it. All these things that are somewhat processed, they will add sugar in it to make it taste better. What are the different names of added sugar? If you look on a package, they will name it all sorts of things that you might recognize, like sugar, sucrose, fructose, all those kind of things. And then a lot of things that make it sound healthy, like turbinado sugar, raw sugar, cane sugar, fruit juice concentrate, right? There are up to 56 different names that people have called sugar, naming something that's sweet, that isn't, that's the same as sugar, but they just call it something else to make you think maybe you feel better about having that sugar in there. How much sugar are we eating? Well, it's a lot. Some research has shown that nowadays we are eating upwards of 57 pounds per person per year. Now, I don't know about you, but it's been a little while since I've held a 5-pound bag of sugar, but it's a pretty big bag. So imagine about almost 6 of those, let's see, 5 pounds times 10, 10 bags, maybe a little bit more than that. 12 bags gets you about 60 pounds. So that's a lot of sugar that you'd be consuming per year for the average American. How do we get to this 57 pounds per sugar per year? A lot of it has to do with the fact that portion sizes have increased over the years. So a little Coke, grew to a big Coke. 20 years ago, hamburgers only looked that big, but now they're really, really huge. Big Macs, right? McDonald's is one of those people that took their drinks from about, I think that those are ounces on the left side, but all the way up to 40 ounces as the drinks became bigger and bigger. That includes things like 7-Eleven and other places too, where you can just buy big gulps of these drinks anywhere. Also, sugar is pretty much everywhere. So all these different foods out there, they all have sugar in it. It just makes it taste better. So here's just a sample of a lot of the different foods that you might find out there. A lot of it's processed, and approximately how much sugar is sitting in all these kind of foods. And they add up. Think of how many times you have pizza every week or a bowl of cereal every day. I mean, all that kind of stuff will add up to a lot of sugar. So how about fruit juice? The USDA says one medium orange, for example, has about 12 grams of sugar. So that's roughly, I don't know, 3 teaspoons of sugar, but there is 3.1 grams of fiber in there. So just so you know, 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar is about 4 grams of sugar. But we're less concerned about full oranges because they have the fiber in it. So when you eat the orange, the sugar doesn't enter your system so much. And so it's relatively benign the way it is there. However, a 1 cup, about 8 ounces of orange juice literally takes about 3 to 4 oranges to get that one cup of orange juice. That's about 9 to 12 teaspoons of sugar without any fiber because we took all that out. Fiber really is our ally in keeping the sugars from being absorbed very quickly and entering our system. And it also helps us feel full, so we don't eat more on top of that. I mean, a question you can ask yourself is, if you didn't drink that 1 cup of orange juice, would you eat 3 to 4 oranges at once? That's a lot of oranges, right? It's like, but it's so easy to drink that 1 glass of orange juice, or a bigger glass if you really like it. So a little bit about the biology, just quickly, what happens when you eat sugar and throw it in your system? They're the 2 popular kind of sugars that we talk about, glucose and fructose, are metabolized slightly differently. Sugars are broken down by the stomach enzymes. Glucose is absorbed in the small intestine. Your blood sugar rises. The pancreas absorbs insulin in response. Insulin causes body tissues to absorb the glucose. Then the blood sugar drops and everything goes kind of normalizes from there. Fructose is pre-processed by the liver into glucose or fat. Liver stores this then as glycogen or fat, and is released into the bloodstream as needed. So that's a little bit about how that happens inside our bodies. So what are metabolic diseases? So any of these diseases or disorders that disrupt our normal metabolism, the process of converting food to energy, right? Some of these diseases include type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, some cancers, and many others. Sad thing about this now is about 35% of US adults, and 50% of these adults are age 60 plus, have metabolic disease, according to research back in 2015. That's a lot of people, okay? I'm sure everybody here knows someone with a metabolic disease. Now, one of the more frightening things that we've discovered over the years is that, wow, now type 2 diabetes is starting to move down the age chain, younger and younger, right? And according to 2019 research, I mean, we're starting to see a lot of type 2 diabetes showing up in children, and this is really concerning. Now, the funny thing is, these are chronic, non-communicable diseases. These are diseases that can be completely prevented and reversed if you eat properly. So what are the other issues on top of that? Well, it's linked to obesity, diabetes. We talked about cardiovascular diseases, other types of diseases too, like hypertension, kidney disease, dental caries. That's one we always get from our dentist. Stop eating the sugar, you brush your teeth, all that kind of thing. Nowadays, people are talking about addictive qualities that it has. So you eat a little bit of sugar, you get used to it, and then now you want to eat even more than that. And then also sometimes it's now showing up alongside mental disorder and depression. Now, back to that diabetes notion in younger and younger people, pre-diabetes in California, right? Nearly half the adults are estimated to be pre-diabetic, and an estimated 1/3 aged 18 to 39 are pre-diabetic, and approximately 1 in 3 new cases of type 2 diabetes is diagnosed in patients less than 18 years of age, right? So again, right, all these diabetes and pre-diabetic kind of diagnoses is starting to move younger and younger into younger populations, and that's really concerning. So what are some myths surrounding sugar? Well, sugar is an essential nutrient. Well, is it really? Essential, I believe, really means something that we cannot manufacture in our body and that we need an outside input of it in order to be healthy. Well, so if that were true, then, well, it's not quite true, because we can create sugar out of other carbohydrates. Okay. Sugar comes from plants, so you should be part of a healthy plant-based diet. It's like, well, that's true, But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because sugar's in plants that we should just start spooning sugars into our mouth and that makes us a better. Okay, just eat less and exercise more. Now, as people working in the health and fitness field here, it isn't really true so much that if you just eat less and exercise more, that magic things can happen. I think a lot of us have seen now that people will come into the gym, they will continue to exercise a ton, and they still look the same. Now we believe that actually nutrition is probably one of the major components of things that you have to do if you really want good weight control. And exercise is just something that you can add on to that to make things better. But if you don't control your nutrition, it is really hard to lose weight by exercise alone. Calories from sugar are empty calories. Well, yes and no, depends on how you get it, right? If you were just to eat a spoonful of sugar, yeah, you could say maybe there's empty, there's not other nutrition coming with it. But if you get it in apples or oranges or some kind of fruit, well, it's not empty anymore, is it? And then the last statement, a calorie is a calorie. There is this notion of calories in equals calories out as part of the way the body metabolizes and uses energy and creates energy. However, it's not quite as simple as that. There's a lot of different ways that the body can adjust to eating more or eating less, and still being able to supply the same amount of energy that your body needs to operate. So it isn't quite as simple as every single calorie is the same as other types of calories. That's another notion. A calorie found in a piece of protein is not the same as a calorie found in fat, or the same calorie found in sugar either. So a lot of different nuances to that statement, and not as easy as and not as simple as it may imply. So we've talked a lot about sugar. So can we eat any sugar? Well, I think there's only one guideline that I found out there that that our medical community has given us now. The American Heart Association a couple years back said that the maximum daily amount of added sugar we can eat now, their recommendation is that men is about 36 grams per day, roughly 9 teaspoons, so roughly about 30 pounds per year. So about, I don't know, 30 pounds less than what we're normally eating. For women, that's a little bit less, to 20 pounds per year, 24 grams per day, 6 teaspoons. And for children, the children one is interesting. They say 6 teaspoons too, but that's with that little asterisk of actually for children aged 0 to 2, they say actually no added sugar anymore at all. So which is an amazing thing. And especially since we've been seeing in the news about what they do to baby food and the potential dangers of that. I mean, think about all the baby food that you might be feeding your baby. A lot of it has sugar in it, so that the babies will eat it, right? So they will love it, and you as a parent feel good about that, but it isn't necessarily the healthiest thing that you could be feeding your very young kids. Why is it so difficult to maintain a low sugar diet? Well, it's, again, just everywhere. Even a cup of seemingly healthy, low-fat vanilla yogurt has 34 grams of total sugar in it. 15 grams are naturally occurring, but they've added 19 grams, and that's 5 teaspoons in a single cup of low-fat vanilla yogurt, and that's a lot. So what about other sweeteners? That came up recently. There's probably about 3 types when we talk about artificial sweeteners, just other types of sweeteners besides sugar. There's artificial. There's a category that I would call the new natural. Then there's other natural sweeteners. So artificial would be things that are named things like saccharin, acesulfame, aspartame, neotame. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing these right. Sucralose. Okay. Then there's the new natural ones, which are derived from plants usually. These are things like stevia and xylitol or erythritol, monk fruit, yacon syrup. Okay. And then there's other natural ones which we may be very familiar with, things like coconut sugar, honey, maple syrup, and molasses. So these sugar substitutes, a lot of them have 0 or very low calories. So from a metabolic standpoint, they don't seem to contribute to insulin rises. Okay, and so they are deemed a little bit more healthy or less risky to take these than normal sugar, which does cause blood sugar to rise, and as well as your insulin level to rise in response. I will say that typically they are much more potent than simple sugar alone. The sweetness of stevia is something like in the hundreds more sweeter than sugar. So they are much more stimulus. They stimulate your sugar receptors, your sweetness receptors a lot more than normal sugar does. So what are the other potential effects and issues? Artificial sweeteners are suspected to have a number of health risks. I put the little resource there, the footnote there, in case you want to take a look at. But they range from being carcinogenic, having negative brain effects, and also allergic reactions to them. The new naturals seem to be safe so far. Some researchers have noted that they may cause digestive issues if you consume them in large enough quantities. So you have to be careful not to dump in things like xylitol or erythritol into whatever you're making, because you might get stomach upset from too much of it. Other natural sweeteners are definitely closer to simple sugar. They don't have the fiber. They do have caloric effects on the metabolism because they have high glycemic index. Glycemic index is that measurement that they give to sugars as far as how fast that they actually enter into your system. But a lot of people like to use those instead of regular sugar. So other effects beyond those health risks come from this article, which I found in the net: artificial sweeteners, sugar-free, but at what cost? So these are some of the things I've noted in this article, which are, if you replace the lost calories from other sources, like for example, if I'm drinking this diet soda, which has artificial sweetener in it, I may feel like it's okay that since I didn't take calories this way, that I can have calories more in other places. Overstimulation of cigarette receptors may limit tolerance to more complex tastes. So if I have something that's super, super sweet, that may make me less tolerant of things that aren't so sweet. So things like fruit, or even just things that aren't sweet at all, like vegetables. I may just not want to eat those because they just don't taste the same. They don't taste as good. Extra sweetness may prevent us from associating sweetness from caloric intake, and thus we crave more sweets. And also artificial sweeteners may be addictive due to this extra sweetness. So a lot of interesting things around these substitutes that may be happening to us that require a lot more research, but may be worsening the effects. So what can we do right away to help with this? So the first thing I like to do, whoops, my presentation is not moving. Hold on one second here. Let me just stop this for just a moment and wonder why my presentation is not moving. Can I do this? Oh, okay, good. Sorry about that. I don't know why my clicking wasn't working there. Okay, so as a coach, I tend to like to coach people to eat just simply real food. I like to look at food on this healthy nutrition continuum. On one end of the spectrum, on the left side, is real food. It looks like it came from the ground or the animal. You find it usually on the edges of the supermarket, and the natural sugars are okay due to the fiber content that's in these. If you go to the other end of the spectrum, we call this, a lot of this stuff just processed food. It doesn't look like it came from the ground or the animal that it might have reported to taste like. It's definitely manufactured for taste. Industry is really good at making things that taste good and make you want to buy more of it, okay? And of course, it's got added sugar to help with that taste. So that's also an aspect that doesn't work so well. So when we coach people, we try to just push people towards real food, and generally good things happen just simply by moving away from processed food. Oh boy, this click is not working. Let's do this. Okay, so good on the real food side, not so good on the processed food side. So what can you do at home? So again, cooking your meals at home as much as possible, taking your real food and cooking it so you know exactly what goes into each meal. That's a positive thing versus what somebody else might serve to you in a package. You may not know or understand or even know what these complex chemical names are. You don't know what these things are. A kitchen makeover. Simply not having these things available within easy reach is a good thing. And it also encourages you to eat other types of things. So you might want to look in your cupboards and your cabinets, just get rid of all the stuff that may have this added sugar in it, and put natural snacks, more healthier snacks in there as a substitute. Limit those desserts. We all like to have desserts after our meals, especially dinner, but if we only have it during special occasions, then that can help limit us from having them every single night. For example, a scoop of ice cream every night, or a piece of cake or something like that. Then we only have them on holidays or on birthdays or something like that. So anything that we can do to not have them every single day is a good thing. Along with the kitchen makeover, right? Choosing snacks and having them around in the house that are not processed. So having more fruits, cheeses, nuts, vegetable sticks, all those kind of things will help us control the sugar that can come in those packaged goods that are sitting in that picture on the right. Also, just not having sugary drinks in the households, less sodas, soft drinks, even juices you might consider not having too. All those things not being in the refrigerator or in the cupboards will help you reduce your sugar intake overall. Another thing to consider is if you're eating out, a lot of the portions they serve now are just a lot bigger than what they used to be. And if you were to actually be able to compute how much calories you're taking in, then it could be a lot more than you really need. But a lot of us, I think, were culturalized to not leave things on the plate because our parents would tell us never to do that, and we always have to finish everything on our plate. So we tend to kind of want to just finish everything that we have that's put in front of us. Okay, so instead of just blindly eating that, be mindful of the portion size when you're eating out or buying takeout. And you kind of see like where if you were to compute some of this stuff, how a lot of these things are just simply more than what we need. And just because they're sitting there and we're eating them quickly and we're enjoying ourselves when we're doing it, we may just end up eating more than we need. And a lot of that contains sugar, especially the muffins and the pasta, sugar and bagels and that kind of thing. Could really help us out if we just be a little bit more mindful in how much we eat when we go out. So if there's a way to advocate for this, it'd be awesome to go to the industry and say, look, let's just have healthier portion sizes, not just keep serving us more food when we don't really need it. At the store, okay, get good at reading the labels. Okay, avoid, I'll go into the label a bit more in a second, but avoid shopping when you're hungry. If you go to the supermarket when your stomach is growling on anything, you may tend to actually pick things that you really didn't really need to buy, but you might buy more of. Okay, shopping along the edges of supermarkets, always the fresh produce is there. All the processed stuff, all the packaged stuff is always sitting in the aisles in the middle. Okay, so staying on the outside edges of the supermarket is definitely a better thing. Again, choosing real food. Okay, more ingredients a product has, is the less likely it's a real food. So things that don't have labels generally are real food. So back to the advocacy of hopefully you will choose to eat real food and cook more of it, and that's a good thing. Just as a guideline, if something has more than 3 teaspoons of added sugar in it per serving, it's probably a dessert. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that. So our shopping habits can change food industry practices. If we don't go and buy those things in the middle of the aisle so much, then food industry has to change, right? They're already changing in response to the fact that we are demanding more organic food, more food that has less GMOs. I mean, they're already moving down that path. But the more we can also stop eating cookies and crackers and all those kind of things, then things will change along those lines as well. And I believe this last thing is just a little bit accent on the graphic there. The original label is sitting on the left, and they're all moving towards using this new label. So as you can see, it's a little bit more clear as to how many calories. It's a little bit more bolder, but also more importantly in that red circle, red rectangle, is exactly how much added sugar there is in this product. So this is the, I believe, exactly the same product from before and after. And although it isn't exactly the same, something did happen from the sugars from 1 gram to the total sugars of 12 grams on the right. And although we don't really know exactly what that means, it could be that the new regulations have demanded that, well, some of the things you didn't name sugars, you really have to, but you didn't before. But also they could have added more sugar simply to make it more palatable and more sellable and to make more money off of it. Okay. If you are a family and kids, it helps when the family as a whole is engaged in this healthy activity. So try to get everyone on board with eating healthy, non-sugary, and minimally processed food. When you're out with your kids at the store, right, help your kids make those healthy choices. Explain to them why is it better to eat an apple and not this box of Oreos. Okay. Teach your children to read those labels too. Okay. Once they get more in tune for what they're putting in their mouth exactly, not just because it tastes good or something like, or because marketing says they should eat it, they will also become more educated and learn. A great activity to do with your whole family is to teach your kids how to cook. I'm sure they will love it. My kids love cooking alongside us. So they don't feel unfamiliar to it and feel like, oh, it's too hard or I can't do it. They will be more encouraged to cook themselves. Kitchen makeovers, again, just have healthy foods and snacks within reach. Then they won't be reaching for the cookies or the crackers or the chips or the Doritos or anything like that. Having fruits, vegetables, nuts instead of those things is a good thing in your home. Now, kids away from the home, just thought I'd throw some things out there. I did a lot of school advocacy in the last couple of years and thought I'd include this slide. So if you can or feel so inclined, you can work with the school to ensure that parties and celebrations there really don't have those bad snacks and they serve nutritious foods and snacks instead. Stop serving these fruit boxes, fruit juice boxes, soft drinks, all those kind of things that are so available at schools today. You can advocate to have those things not be offered to your kids there. You can also check when you send your kids to camps, sports teams, as good as they are as from a competitive standpoint and a team aspect, they are actually, a lot of those sport teams are sponsored by the Gatorades of the world. So I'd urge you to be aware of that they could be just giving away Gatorade sitting at these sports teams, even for little children. Okay, and that's added sugar that's sitting now in them versus what you might have given them. And also, when your kids are going to their friend's house, you can have a discussion with the other parents and make sure that they serve healthy food to your kids when they visit as well. So we are performance gains here. So for athletes, which we have a lot of, I thought I'd throw a couple slides in about sugar and athletes. It isn't really clear on what happens to athletes in health. There's been a lot of research about it in the most recent years, because the body under athletic load and stress is not the same as the body not under that same load or stress. One of the papers that came out back in 2015, it was more examining whether people should just dump carbs altogether and use high-fat diets and see if people can still get the same amount of performance or even better performance from people without using carbs and potentially the health risks associated with it. And what they came up with is that there should be an individualized approach, okay, that's periodized through the training cycle. So sometimes it might make sense to have sugar and carbs, and sometimes maybe it's okay not to. You have to take into account the fuel needs for each workout, and also the importance of performing well, and whether you want the adaptive response to exercise to be better or not as much, okay? And all that complexity in that long, short paragraph there, it means that some people, okay, do seem to do okay under a low carb regimen, Okay, and we can find examples on the net and some influencers and all these people who are saying, oh, I'm on a ketogenic diet and I'm doing great. However, it isn't clear that everyone can be like that. And so you actually might not be one of them. So you can give it a try and see if you can do well. And some people do, but a lot of people do not. Okay, and there's a host of potential reasons and theories on behind why that is. Now, just wanted to put at least one cautionary tale out there. Tim Noakes, he's a South African doctor, researcher, ran a lot of marathons, written a lot of books called Lore of Running and a bunch of other ones too. He was big on high carb diets for many, many years, ran marathons, really big on doing that, getting rid of fat. He was a traditional doctor, so he was on the high sugar, high carb kind of side, low, don't eat any fat because it's bad for you kind of thing. And then he developed type 2 diabetes along the way. And then he's completely switched around and started promoting low carb, and especially even for athletes. So here's a guy who trained a lot and was very scientific and knew a lot about it, managed to get diabetes despite thinking that he was doing the right thing. And then he switched to low carb. And he's really big on doing that for athletes too. So if you were to ask him whether this was the right way to go, even for athletes, I'm sure he would say that, yeah, you should do low carb, even for performance. So, different perspectives out there. Some things that you can do to just lower your sugar intake. One of those is just simply avoiding sugary drinks outside of workouts in the gym. A lot of people I know, since they drink Gatorade in the gym, they'll just have Gatorades all over the place, thinking that it's a good drink. Yeah, it tastes good. It might be something you can ingest, but a lot of it isn't necessarily that great for you. So I put up this blue Gatorade bottle sitting on the right here, and there's a lot of stuff in here, right? There is 41 grams of sugar per bottle sitting in here. Okay, that's a lot in this little bottle. Okay, and so if you drank 1, 2, 3 of these a day, I mean, that's a lot of sugar that you're throwing inside you, which could be avoided if you just simply did not drink this outside of a workout. And I also wanted to point out that that blue one, that coloring that makes it nice, I don't know if you call it pretty, but electric bluish, is actually banned in European countries because it links to brain cancer. So there are other reasons why you might not want to be drinking this Gatorade. Okay. Now, what about when you're in the gym and during workouts? Well, we could say that, yeah, we don't want to have sugary drinks even during then. Couple things you could try is, well, ever try working out fasted? There's actually some benefits to it in terms of weight loss, in terms of fat burning, all that kind of thing. And I guess the question really is, do you really need that sports drink or gel during a workout, or would just water suffice by itself? Now, if your workout is anything about an hour or under, the likelihood of you being able to be good and survive that workout is pretty darn good, because all the energy you need is just sitting inside your body. Okay. Now, anything over that, when you get into endurance sports, you start running into the hour and a half and beyond that for training, it is likely that you will need something to keep you going. Okay. And that's from experience as a guy who had trained Ironman and raced a lot of marathons. So, some things to think about is, what's your goal? Is it weight loss? Is it personal record? Definitely one goal is much better than having multiple goals, because they can compete with each other. So if you want to lose weight, for example, you may want to lay off the sugar a lot more than if you are trying to get your personal record and you want to be as energetic as possible all the way to the finish line. Okay, so but trying to do both at the same time, that can be really, really tough. Okay, you can also make your own real food and performance snacks. I put up 2 books there, one by Alan Lim, who used to be Lance Armstrong's, one of Lance Armstrong's support crew when he was racing Tour de France, and Rocket Fuel by this other guy, Matthew Cady. And they basically give you recipes on how to create these little snacks that you can bring along either when you're working out or when you're on your long rides or runs, that you make yourself. So you at least know exactly what's in those and not anything else that could be in there. Also, you might want to look at mixing and building your own sports drinks. One of my favorite places to get powders is truenutrition.com, because what they sell you is bulk powder, but there's nothing else in it but that powder. If you can flavor it, you can ask them to flavor it if you want to. But if you really want to just have that one thing, and if you want to have a really bland drink, you can find that stuff there, and it's pretty good. All right, so what are the things you can do now? Again, just eat real food, minimize processed foods. You'll go a long way if you just simply move towards that, on that continuum, towards real food. Take things one step at a time. Trying to make wholesale changes to your lifestyle and how you eat. It can be really, really tough to do it all at once. So you might think about, what one action can you take today? Another thing I advocate is really just being patient, because it's a process to break that sugar habit. You may find that it's really, really tough just to give up one Coke per day, or one Snickers bar, or a handful of M&Ms, or whatever it is. It can be really, really tough. So be patient and compassionate with yourself. That is going to take some time, and it's going to be a process. You might be overwhelmed, you might be confused. This presentation was almost 40 minutes long now. Habits not sticking, who knows, right? Encourage you to definitely find help. We're here to help you at performance gains, either through me, through my coaching, or we also encourage you to join the Performance Gains Mighty Networks. And there's a topic called Food, Food, Food. And you can join that topic and follow it. And you can post your questions and comments there. And there's a bunch of us there who can help you figure out exactly what your issues are and how to help you through them. At this link, ds.ly/pg-sugars-talk, I put a bunch of documents sitting in there. For example, there's for parents, there's a bunch of stuff from some good resources about how to deal with kids and how to get their nutrition better. I also put a document that summarizes all this. It's got some listing on books and some links to some good resources, like these two websites. Robert Lustig, he's a researcher at UCSF, great, big on advocating for not eating so much sugar. Sugar Science has a lot of collective research, latest research on sugar. There's a bunch of movies out there that are pretty good. Those are also in that document. I find that Chris Kresser's Sugar Research page is a great collection of also of the latest research and thinking on sugar, especially from a functional medicine perspective, if you are big on that. And again, go to that short URL and you can find all those links on my Dropbox over there. So come to the end of the presentation. What one step can you take today? And I think we're ready to take some comments and questions if there are any. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing. And I see 2 attendees. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I see some in the chat. So you can raise your hand if you have a question. Otherwise, I'm going to go through the chat and answer some of these. Okay, I don't see any coming up just yet. So, okay, first question in the chat is, are all canned foods processed? Well, they are manufactured to a certain extent. Certainly those natural foods like canned tomatoes, canned fruits, canned whatever, canned peaches. They certainly do put a lot of other stuff in there. Some of it's to preserve it. Some of it's just to make it taste better, right? And so read the labels. Sometimes they have almost nothing in it, okay? But when you're buying canned foods, just urge you to look for organic if you can. Make sure there's the sugar is not there. Oh, another thing about the ingredient labels is usually, I think it always is, the thing that's listed first is also the thing that is of the most quantity of in that particular product. So it gets kind of scary when you have something like beans and sugar is like the first thing that's listed there. So be wary of that when you're reading ingredient labels. But yeah, read the labels, look what's inside. Is it just the beans or is there something else in it? And then make the decision. Do you want to put it in your mouth or not? Right? 57 pounds per year, all processed. I think it's added sugar, 57 pounds that they calculate, but we can double check that on the website. The presentation is sitting also in that Dropbox folder, and there are links to all the sources in there. So I encourage you to follow those links and to find and to dig deeper as much as you want to. Okay. What are some other sources of fiber? Flax, chia, hemp as direct sources. Well, let's see. Plant sources. Any plant you eat has a lot of fiber in it. Sweet potatoes, fibrous leaves, all have fiber in it in various quantities. Certainly grains also have a lot of fiber in them. So that's why a lot of people like to eat whole grain food. So generally anything that comes from the plant itself or comes closer to the plant has fiber in it. Okay. And you can also look it up on the USDA ingredient charts as to exactly which foods have more fiber than others. Let's see, path of sugar absorption, dynamic infographic. Oh, I don't know about that. You can go to that site, which is, I think it's an NIH site that had the diagram of digestion. I'm not sure if there's something that's animated for that. But it is kind of complex in terms of what goes where and where exactly things break down and what gets absorbed where. I provided probably a very simplistic notion of that, but when you talk about other nutrients and all that kind of thing can get pretty complex pretty quickly. Sugar linked to digestive issues. How does changes in gut flora impact absorption? Oh, well, so I don't recall there being sugar linked to digestive issues directly. However, you can think of it also this way, where if you eat a lot of sugar, it will change the flora, the bacteria makeup in your gut. Okay, and also potentially encourage growth of things that love sugar, like yeast and things like candida and other species of bacteria that use sugar to metabolize. So the interesting thing now is there's a lot of research that shows that your gut, your digestive tract, is almost like a third brain. Okay, a second brain. So first brain is your brain up here, second brain your gut, and it's all connected through the nervous system. So there's some evidence now that shows that the gut bacteria here is influencing your actions. Now you may not be recognizing that or aware of it, that your gut bacteria might be going, Dave, you know what? You haven't fed me in a while. You could really use that Hershey's bar right now. And then all of a sudden, right, you're going like, oh man, I crave that, or I crave the Gatorade, or I crave the Coke, right? And so there is some evidence now, and a lot of researchers are looking at this, that it is the gut bacteria that can affect potentially your conscious decisions or unconscious, subconscious, unconscious decisions as to what you pick and what you are actually going after. So in that sense, it may be that you can crave sugar and have more addictive qualities associated with sugar due to eating a lot of sugar and the changes in composition in gut bacteria. So that's stuff that's really fascinating, and definitely encourage you to take a look more into that. Impacts absorption though, that's, let's see. I'd have to think about that. I mean, definitely there could be some thing associated with leaky gut due to gut bacteria affecting that. Yeah, that one I'm not so sure about, if there's a significant change that we can track to that. Let's see, can we mitigate added sugars by adding fiber? Some of those sugars that are in natural occurring they're really bound to the fibers. And so you can't really do that with taking some powdered fiber, say, and mixing it up with sugar, because the plant didn't really take that into the molecules of the fiber itself. So it's not quite the same anymore. In fact, you can even say that powdered fiber or some of that fiber form that you get as a supplement isn't quite as good, because it's already been kind of chopped apart a little bit. So it's got some qualities, but it's also missing some fibrous qualities as well. So the best fiber that you can probably get is just to eat it out of real food versus through supplementation. Let's see, before I hit that last thing in the chat, any other questions or comments from anyone? Because if not, we are almost at time. And then the last thing in the chat is that follow-up from coming to this presentation. Thank you all for coming, by the way. I really appreciate being with you here on 12:30 at lunchtime on this Tuesday. And you'll get an email afterwards with that link to the PG-Sugar-Talk Dropbox folder where you get all this information and you can take a look at it at your leisure. And yeah, if you need help with any of this stuff, Performance Gains here, I'm here to help you. Go to the Performance Gains Mighty Networks, join up and follow that topic, food, and ask your questions there. We're all here to help you out. And with that, if there are no final questions.
No, that was very helpful, Dave. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Happy to do it. And yeah, well, we can do a lot more like these on a variety of topics. I think we got a couple coming up in the next couple of weeks. So watch for those as well.
Cool. Thank you.